All right, we're starting the last unit of this course, Angles and Properties of Parallel Lines. So some of this should be review from junior high, but we need to have a kind of a good understanding for this, particularly when we get into trig, which will be a little bit new. So first we're going to go through some definitions and some diagrams. So it says, definition, a transversal is a line that intersects two or more other lines at distinct points. Label the transversal in the three diagrams shown. So it has to, one line has to intersect two others. So in this case, I'm just going to get my pen going here. This is the transversal here, actually. I'm going to do it in blue. Okay, because it's intersecting two other lines. Whereas this one line isn't a transversal because it's only touching one line. Okay, so there's a transversal. This would be a transversal because it's touching twice. Okay, and then here, this one is, so these are all transversals really, because that one's touching twice, that one's touching twice, this one's touching twice. So which of the diagrams shows a transversal intersecting two parallel lines? So remember what parallel lines are. They are two lines, or more than two lines, that are equal distance apart. So this transversal here, when I look at the two lines that it intersects, they are not equal distance. If I extend this, I'm not doing a very good job, but in a straight line, those are going to intersect. So those are not parallel. But this one, if I extend these ones, they're never going to meet. Okay, if you're not sure, then you will see on some lines, basically arrowheads put in the middle of the line, not just at the end. So that means that those are parallel. Okay, but you can, if you were to measure these, they'd be equal distance apart. So this is the second one. And these obviously are not parallel at all. Indicate the two lines that are parallel to each other using appropriate notation. So that's what I just did here. Okay, those arrow symbols. All right, so types of angles formed by a transversal intersecting two parallel lines. So you can see here, these are parallel. They've got two arrow symbols on them. That's fine as long as they're both have two. If one had one and the other had two, then it means they're not parallel. They would be parallel with other lines perhaps. So things to remember, interior angles. Those are angles formed by the transversal and the two parallel lines that lie inside. So the four interior angles are A, B, C, and D. So interior, think of interior paint. When you go to paint your bedroom, if you buy paint, it's interior. Exterior paint is for the outside of your house. That's kind of what I always think of. So inside the two parallel lines. So that would be A, B, C, and D. I'm not going to use the angle symbol. We're going to say angles A, B, C, and D. So those are interior. What we're going to look at more frequently is more specific types of angles, so alternate interior angles. So the definition of those is non-adjacent interior angles on opposite sides of the transversal. So that's a lot of big words there. Think of alternating. If you alternate from the left side of the road to the right side, you're going back and forth, right? So if you're riding on your bike or walking or whatever. So non-adjacent, okay, means also they're not next to each other. Adjacent means they are. So alternate interior basically means, for example, this angle and this one. All of those are interior, but they're on opposite sides of the transversal. Okay, so that could be D and C or A and C, but they're alternate. So that means they're diagonal to each other basically. Okay, so A and C are, and B and D are. Okay, so two pairs. So I'm going to put, maybe I'll do that in blue. So A and C and then B and D. You may have learned in junior high that if you draw a Z, kind of a weird looking Z, normally we go Z like this, but basically a Z, those angles that are formed for our alternate interior angles, because the top and the bottom are parallel in a Z, and so those are equal. So that means here A and C are equal. Then a backwards Z here would be B and D. Okay, so and then if you extended that would be this one and this one. Okay, so sometimes that helps you, but they are equal, and we're going to talk about that in a second. In any case, we're just labeling them right now. So then exterior angles, those are angles formed by the transversal and two parallel lines that lie outside the parallel lines. So I'll use green for these. So that would be E, F, G, and H, right? They're outside, they're exterior. So that's E, F, G, and H. And then alternate exterior angles, same deal, opposite sides of the transversal, okay, and they're not adjacent. So G and H, can't say that, but G and E we can, and F and H we can. So maybe I'll just change the color of these ones here, and I'll use, how about a purple? Okay, so what are they? So that would be F and H, and then I'll use green for E and G. All right, and again, those are going to be equal. We'll talk about that in a sec. Corresponding angles, that's a pair of non-adjacent angles consisting of one interior angle and one exterior. They are on the same side of the transversal. So I'm going to erase what I have here, okay, to make it a little bit cleaner. And then, so basically, that means they're on the same side of the transversal, okay, and then they're on the same side of each parallel line. Okay, so if this one's below a parallel line, then this one is below a parallel line. So it says a pair of non-adjacent angles consisting of one interior and one exterior. There's the interior, there's the exterior on the same side of the transversal. Then another pair here would be A and H. And then you could actually go above, right? So if I chose here D, then that's interior, then this is exterior. And then if I did C, that would be F, okay? And so here, the way to remember this, if you remember back to junior high, is drawing an F, okay? So if I drew an F like this, then this angle is equal to this angle. It could be an upside down F, it could be a backwards F. But the parallel lines, right, in an F, those are parallel lines, and these are both below the parallel lines. Okay, so there's 4 pairs here. So what did we say first? B and G. Oops, B and G was the red. Then we said A and H was the blue. Then we said the green was D and E. And then the purple was F and G. Okay, and then vertically opposite angles, that's a pair of angles that are opposite of one another across the intersection point of 2 lines. The 2 angles share the same vertex but are non-adjacent. So really in this you don't need the parallel or the parallel lines in the transversal. Vertically opposite, just any 2 lines that intersect, then this angle here is the same as this one, This angle here is the same as this one. Okay, so in our diagram though, there again, I'll erase this so it makes it easier to see. There's 4 pairs. So we have E and B, we have A and F, we have then in the other parallel line C and H, and then we have D and G. Okay, so they go across, and that they end up being equal to each other. Okay. Okay, so E and B, A and F. So I've got blue right now. So A and F, E and G. Is that what I just said? Let me just check. E and B, A and F, E and B. Okay, and then below, so D and G, C and F. So D and G, oops, and G, C and F. Okay, I'm just going to put 2 pages on here so that we can still see the diagram. I'm going to erase those because there's one more property here. So it says co-interior angles on the same side of the transversal. So that's a pair of non-adjacent angles consisting of the 2 interior angles on the same side. So that would be, example would be B and C there. So they're co-interior, co means together, inside, on the same side of the transversal. Okay, and so B and C. Now here, though, they won't be equal to each other. They're going to add to 180. They're supplementary. In any case, so for this one, it's actually called the C rule, but with a square C. So that one and that one, or it could be A and D, a backwards C. All right, and so here 2 pairs, so A and C, and B and, oh sorry, A and D, and B and C. So A and D, B and C. Okay, other things to remember from junior high. Okay, I'm going to go back to a full screen here. Supplementary angles. So supplementary add to 180 degrees. All right. So when you form 2 angles together that that are supplementary, they are adjacent and form a straight line. Because remember, a straight line has an angle measure from there to there of 180. Okay? Complementary angles, their sum is 90 degrees. So they form a right angle. That's a special name to it. Now, how do you remember these? So sometimes I think, okay, C comes before S in the alphabet. 90 is less than 180. So they're kind of in order in that sense. Acute angle, remember that's whose measure is, so theta is less than 90 and greater than 0. So think about it's kind of the smallest angle, and it's got the word cute in it. So if you've got a little puppy or a little baby that's small, you think of them as being cute. Angle is acute. Obtuse, that is an angle that's bigger than 90, but less than 180. Okay. That, I'm not sure how to, you can remember that, but reflex, I do think when you think about reflex, that's basically greater than 180. Okay, and so if you think about that, there's one part of an angle, let's say this part, so this is reflex. And so I think about that as kind of being flexible, like if you're in a yoga class or something like that. And then always have to remember angles in a triangle add to 180. Okay, So now let's practice calculating some angles here. We're not going to use a protractor for any of these. You're going to use your practice. So basically, if you remember, if you go back to the previous page. So on the previous page, I'm going to erase what I had here. We're going to summarize what I said verbally, but we're going to write it on our paper. So here, I'm going to do it in green. When we have alternate interior angles, they are equal. When we have alternate exterior angles, they are equal. When we have corresponding, it's a funny U, but corresponding angles, they are equal. When we have vertically opposite angles, they are equal. Okay, the only property that's not equal are these ones. These are supplementary. So they add to 180. Okay, so now that's going to help us with these questions here. So one of the exterior angles is given to us, 105. Determine the measures of each of the other angles. So I'm just going to do this. So we're going to have A equals B equals C equals D equals E equals G equals H equals. So what I always look at, if you've got two lines intersecting and you know one of the angles, the angle directly opposite, vertically opposite, is also equal. So A is 105. Okay, then think about our corresponding angles. If I did an upside down F, then this angle here is the same as this angle here. So C is 105 as well. So you could write those in there, just so you have them. Okay, then again, these are vertically opposite, so that's H is 105. Okay, so there's a lot of 105s. In these diagrams with two parallel lines and transversal, you'll have many angles that are the same. Basically, 4 angles will be the same and the other 4 will be the same. So you could have, once you got this A is 105, you could have done alternate interior is 105. So a few different ways. Next thing, you can go, okay, well, A and D are co-interior angles, so they add to 180. So these have to add to 180. So 180 minus 105 is 75. So that means D is 75. Then if D is 75, G will be 75. And so if D is 75, upside down F, E will be 75. Or alternate interior angles, B will be 75. Okay, so you don't really have a whole variety of angles, basically 4 of each. Okay, this one has 2 pairs of parallel lines. So in this one, we are given one angle and we have to figure out the rest. Not all of them, but we might have to in order to get our work. And just remember that maybe you might do it slightly differently than someone else, but the angles should be the same. So we're going to get A, B, C, and D. I'll put it over here. Okay, so you might want to rotate your paper. I can't rotate this, but this angle here is actually what I might do before I need to rotate. This angle here is going to be the same as this one, right? Because that's an upside down F. So those are equal, and then these are opposite. So that means C is 115. Then if you rotate your paper, well, this angle, maybe I'll switch to red, is kind of a backward Z. So this angle here is the same as this one here. So D is going to be 115 as well. Okay, and then you could go, okay, well then these are complementary. These have to add to 180. So A is going to be 180 minus 115, which is 65. And then those are opposite. So then this is 65. Again, only two different angles in all of that. Okay, now just to make sure you're aware, another way of naming angles is sometimes with capital letters. So we've got points on each of these rays or each of these lines that intersect. And so we can't just call this 125, we can't call it angle E, because E could be this one or this one or this one or this one. So that's why we need to use three letters. So I'm just going to make this there. So which angles in the diagram shown have a measure of 125? So this one here, okay, and this one here. So angle AED, all right, so you have to start at one of the end points, not in the middle. The middle letter is where the angle is. So angle AED equals 125, okay, and opposite that is angle BEC. So angle BEC is also 125. Now you can switch the orders of A and D and B and C, but you have to keep E in the middle. And then, which have a measure of 55? Well, this angle here, because this is a straight line, 180 minus, so 180 minus 125 is 55. So this is 55, and this is 55. But again, we can't use just angle E. We have to go angle, that's going to be CED, and then, so that's 55, and then angle AEB. Okay. All right, some more symbols. Parallel lines. We use these two, basically they're two parallel lines. That means that line segment AB and CD are parallel to each other. Okay. And so basically here, this should have been diagonal. So sometimes you'll see it like this, okay? But I didn't end up doing that on the notes. And then perpendicular lines is an upside down T, because those meet at 90 degrees. Sometimes you'll see a little box in it to mean 90 degrees. So it says, state the measure of each angle. So we have to remember some of our properties. The complement of an angle whose measure is 56. So these add to 90 degrees. So this is going to be 90 minus 56, which will be 34, okay? And supplement, they add to 180. So 180 minus 102 equals, what's that, 78. And then the third angle in a triangle, whose other two angles measure 10 and 43, well, 180 minus 10 minus 43. Okay, so that's going to be that's 170 minus 43, so 127. Okay, and then now, again, finding the missing angle, just like we did before. We've got parallel lines here, and so these are opposite. Here, this one is equal to this one because they are corresponding angles. Or you could say these are alternate interior angles. They're still equal. Then here, this one, you might find x. These add to 180. So that's going to be 65. And then these are opposite. Okay, and then the next one is 90 degrees. So we've got 38 there and an x there. So this they add to 90 so that they are complementary. Okay, so that means the x will be 90 minus 38. 40, that's 52. Okay, and then take a look here. This is a straight line all the way across. Okay, and we have two missing angles. But we do know that this whole angle here is 90. So x and 40 are complementary, right? So they add to 90. So x is going to be 50. And then if that's 90 there, then this would be 90. Okay, so that means y would be, so these are complementary. Okay, so that would be 90 minus 64 is 26. Okay, and then it says here, state one pair of angles that represent each property. So corresponding angles. So those aren't complementary, they're corresponding. So they both start with C. And remember, they form, that's the F rule. So they're on both underneath each set of each parallel line on the same side of the transversal. It just says state one pair. So C and G would work, but I'm going to list more. D and H would work because you may have done just one that I didn't do. And then similarly, both above the parallel lines would be B and F and A and E. Okay, and then let's erase that. Let's look at alternate interior angles. So alternate and interior, okay, they have to be inside, so that would be D and F, and then C and E. Okay, and then supplementary angles. Supplementary add to 180. So there's a lot here because basically you look for any straight line. So E and F, okay, and G and H. And then you could also look this way. So E and H, and F and G. And then up here, same thing. So you could go B and C, and then A and D, and then you can go this way, A and B, and then D and C. And then opposite angles, there's a lot there as well. So here, opposite angles, A and C, oops, sorry, A and C, or B and D, and then E and G, or F and H. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so we're done a review of angles.